I have lived on this island longer than the oldest oak tree remembers wind. My name, if cats truly have names, has been forgotten by time itself, but the humans who occasionally notice me have called me many things. Today, I simply exist as witness to their endless digging. The year 1795 brought another summer of strange visitors to what they call Oak Island. I had grown accustomed to the pattern: ships arriving under cover of darkness, men working by torchlight, the sound of shovels against earth, and always, the careful covering of their work before dawn. But this summer was different. This time, it was not secretive men with urgent purpose who came to disturb the earth. It was 3 local boys, barely old enough to grow proper beards, stumbling upon something that had waited patiently in the ground for longer than their grandfathers had been alive. Daniel McGinnis was the first to notice the depression beneath the ancient oak. From my perch in the neighboring maple, I watched him circle the spot with the intensity of a hunting cat stalking prey. The depression was perfectly circular, approximately 13 feet across and 2 feet deep, as if someone had used a giant compass to mark the earth before digging. Above this depression, hanging from the southeast branch of the oak tree, was a ship's tackle block. The rope that once supported it had long since rotted away, but the iron hardware remained, slowly rusting in the salt air. The tackle was positioned with deliberate care, exactly centered over the depression below. Anthony Vaughan approached with more caution. He knelt at the edge of the depression, running soil through his fingers, testing its consistency against the surrounding ground. The earth here was different, softer, darker, clearly disturbed and replaced at some point in the distant past. John Smith found a fallen branch and began probing the ground within the circle. Even from my elevated position, I could see that the soil gave way more easily than it should have. Someone had dug here before, dug deep, and filled the excavation with earth that had never quite settled back to its original density. The boys spoke in excited whispers about pirates and treasure, but I had seen enough human activity on this island to know that whatever lay beneath the oak tree was far more complex than simple buried loot. The tackle above, the precise circular depression, the careful restoration of the surface. These suggested planning and resources beyond what desperate pirates typically possessed. I had observed the island's peculiarities for decades. There were other depressions scattered across its surface, though none as perfectly formed as this one. There were areas where the vegetation grew differently, where the ground was either too soft or too hard for natural formation. Most tellingly, there were places where the island's water table behaved in ways that defied normal hydrology. The coast of Nova Scotia in 1795 was wild country, populated by farmers, fishermen, and the occasional smuggler. The American Revolution had ended only 12 years earlier, bringing waves of British loyalists seeking new homes in the maritime provinces. These were practical people, focused on survival and building communities, not the type to undertake elaborate engineering projects for unclear purposes. Yet someone had clearly undertaken exactly such a project on Oak Island. The tackle hanging from the oak was ship's equipment, but it had been positioned with surveyor's precision. The depression beneath it was too perfect to be natural, too purposeful to be accidental. Someone with considerable knowledge of construction and engineering had been here before these 3 boys. As the afternoon progressed, the boys' excitement grew with their certainty. They examined the tackle, measured the depression, and began planning their excavation with the confidence of youth and the ignorance of inexperience. They spoke of returning with proper tools, of systematic digging, of the riches that surely awaited them just beneath the surface. From my observation point, I could see what they could not: the subtle signs that this site had been designed to attract exactly this kind of attention. The depression was conspicuous enough to be noticed by curious explorers, but not so obvious as to suggest immediate excavation. The tackle provided just enough mystery to spark imagination without revealing purpose. The island itself seemed to watch their planning with the patience of something that had waited centuries and could wait centuries more. The ancient oak's branches moved in the salt breeze, creaking with age and knowledge that would never be shared. The surrounding forest absorbed their excited voices and returned only the eternal sound of wind through pine needles. As evening approached and the boys prepared to leave, I descended from my maple tree to investigate their discovery more closely. The scent around the depression was layered with history, old wood, oxidized metal, earth that had been disturbed multiple times over many years. Whatever lay beneath the surface had been visited and revisited by different groups across different eras. The tackle block, examined up close, showed wear patterns that spoke of heavy use over extended periods. The iron was of good quality, better than most local smiths could produce, suggesting either foreign manufacture or access to superior materials and techniques. The positioning on the oak branch had been calculated with mathematical precision. Standing in the depression itself, I felt the subtle difference in the ground's resonance. The earth beneath my paws carried vibrations differently than the surrounding forest floor, as if there were empty spaces below, chambers or tunnels that had been carefully concealed but never truly filled. That night, as I settled into my usual sleeping spot in the oak's lower branches, I reflected on what I had witnessed. 3 young men had discovered something that previous visitors had clearly intended to be found, eventually, by people with sufficient curiosity and determination to pursue its mysteries, but those previous visitors had also taken considerable care to ensure that discovery would not lead to easy answers. The tackle was a marker, yes, but it marked the beginning of a puzzle, not the location of a simple treasure cache. The depression was an invitation, but an invitation to what remained unclear. Was it meant to lead seekers to riches, or to knowledge, or merely to the kind of endless quest that consumes resources and lives without ever reaching resolution? As sleep took hold, I found myself anticipating the return of the 3 boys with their shovels and their dreams. I had witnessed enough human endeavors to know that this one would not end quickly or simply. Whatever lay beneath the oak tree had been waiting patiently for exactly this kind of discovery. The island held its secrets close, but it was also ready to share them, slowly, reluctantly, and only with those persistent enough to ask the right questions and wise enough to understand the answers when they finally came. Summer returned with the predictability of tides, and so did the 3 boys, now equipped with the basic tools of optimistic excavation: shovels, pickaxes, wooden buckets, and rope. I had spent the winter months observing the depression beneath the oak, noting how it collected rainwater differently than the surrounding ground, how snow melted there in unusual patterns. The first day of digging revealed the boys' complete inexperience with serious excavation. They took turns with single shovels, argued about the proper angle for digging, and made approximately as much progress as one might expect from enthusiastic amateurs working without plan or method. By the end of their first week, however, they had established a rhythm and reached a depth of 10 feet. The soil they removed was clearly different from natural forest earth, darker, more compacted, mixed with fragments of wood and stone that had no business being there naturally. At exactly 10 feet, their shovels struck something solid, a platform of oak logs fitted together with remarkable precision. The logs were old, but well preserved, sealed together with a putty-like substance that had hardened over time into something resembling primitive concrete. I watched their faces as they uncovered this first platform completely. The excitement was visible, but so was the first hint of uncertainty. This level of construction required planning, time, and considerable skill. It was not the hasty work of pirates burying stolen treasure before fleeing pursuing authorities. The boys spent 2 full days carefully removing the platform, documenting its construction with the thoroughness of amateur archaeologists. The logs had been cut to precise lengths, fitted together without gaps, and sealed with a mixture that analysis would later reveal contained unusual additives not native to Nova Scotia. Below the first platform, they found 10 more feet of earth that had clearly been excavated and replaced. The soil was loose, easy to dig, but mixed with fragments that told stories, pieces of rope, traces of metal tools, fragments of what might have been containers or wrapping materials. At 20 feet, they encountered the second platform, identical in construction to the first, same oak logs, same precise fitting, same mysterious putty sealant. The pattern was becoming clear, but its meaning remained elusive. I began spending my nights prowling the island more extensively, searching for clues that might explain what I was witnessing during the days. The island's topography showed subtle signs of extensive past activity. Areas where the forest floor was slightly elevated or depressed, places where the tree line was suspiciously uniform, paths that might once have been roads or cart tracks. Most intriguingly, I discovered that the island's freshwater springs followed unusual patterns. Several natural springs had been modified or redirected, their flow altered by human intervention. Someone had managed the island's water resources with the same systematic approach they had applied to the money pit. The third platform appeared at 30 feet, maintaining the precise 10-foot intervals that were becoming this excavation's signature characteristic. By now, even the most optimistic of the three boys was beginning to question whether they truly understood what they had discovered. Each platform required careful dismantling to avoid damaging whatever lay beneath. The putty sealant was harder than expected, requiring chisels and considerable effort to break apart. The logs themselves were in remarkable condition, showing signs of having been treated with preservatives that were more sophisticated than typical period woodworking. Between the platforms, the earth told stories through its composition. Layers of different soils suggested the excavation had been filled gradually, possibly over multiple seasons or years. Foreign materials, coconut fiber, tropical wood fragments, stones that were not native to Nova Scotia, indicated connections to distant places and extensive trade networks. The boys' excavation methods evolved as they worked deeper. They constructed a simple pulley system using the oak tree's branches, created platforms for safer working, and developed techniques for managing the increasing water infiltration that plagued deeper levels. Water was becoming their primary challenge. Below 30 feet, the pit began filling faster than they could bail it out. The water was not simply groundwater seepage. It had a different character, slightly salty, with traces of organic material that suggested it was being fed from elsewhere. On the island. At 40 feet, they found the fourth platform, but this one included something new: layers of coconut fiber mixed with the usual putty sealant. The fiber was in good condition, despite its age, treated with some substance that had prevented normal decay. Its presence confirmed that whoever had constructed this system had access to materials from tropical regions. The boys' families had begun expressing concern about the time and effort being invested in what was increasingly looking like an endless project. Local skeptics suggested that the platforms might be evidence of a well or storage system rather than a treasure vault, but the systematic construction and precise spacing argued against such mundane explanations. By autumn, the three founders had reached 50 feet and encountered their first serious setback. The walls of their excavation had become unstable, threatening collapse. The water infiltration had increased to the point where continued digging was dangerous. Most significantly, they had run out of resources to continue alone. Their final discovery of the season was the most puzzling yet. At 50 feet, the fifth platform included not just coconut fiber and putty, but traces of parchment and what appeared to be fragments of metal tools. The parchment was too deteriorated to read, but its presence suggested that documents had been buried along with whatever else lay deeper in the pit. As winter approached, and the boys prepared to suspend their excavation, I reflected on what months of observation had revealed. This was clearly not a simple burial, whether of treasure or anything else. The systematic construction, the precise intervals, the sophisticated materials and preservation techniques all suggested a project undertaken by people with considerable knowledge and resources. The boys covered their excavation carefully, marking its location and depth, preparing for what they hoped would be a triumphant return with better equipment and additional investors. They had proven that something significant lay beneath the oak tree, but they had also proven that extracting it would require far more than youthful enthusiasm and basic tools. Watching them secure their work site and prepare to leave, I found myself genuinely curious about what the next phase of this human drama would bring. They had uncovered enough evidence to confirm that Oak Island held genuine mysteries, but those mysteries were protected by engineering that seemed designed specifically to frustrate the kind of excavation they were attempting. The island settled into winter quiet, but beneath the frozen ground, the money pit waited with the patience of something that had already waited far longer than any human lifetime. Whatever secrets it protected were still secure, still drawing seekers, still revealing just enough to encourage continued searching while maintaining their essential mystery. I curled up in my oak tree shelter, listening to wind through bare branches and waves against rocky shores, knowing that spring would bring new diggers, new theories, and new chapters in what was becoming one of history's most persistent puzzles. 8 years passed before the humans returned in significant numbers, and those years taught me much about the island's hidden character. I spent long seasons exploring every corner of the landmass, discovering patterns that suggested Oak Island had been extensively modified by human activity. Before the boys found their circular depression, the Onslow Company arrived in the spring of 1803, led by Dr. Simeon Linz and backed by Halifax investors who had heard romanticized versions of the original discovery. They brought with them the confidence of organized capital and the assumption that systematic approach would succeed where amateur enthusiasm had failed. I established observation points that allowed me to monitor their activities without interference. Humans engaged in serious work often noticed details they miss during casual observation, and I had learned that staying invisible provided better access to their unguarded conversations and genuine reactions. Linz had assembled a team of experienced miners and construction workers, men who approached the money pit as an engineering challenge rather than a treasure hunt. They re-excavated the original shaft methodically, documenting each platform and analyzing the construction techniques with professional expertise. Their systematic approach revealed details that the original boys had missed or misunderstood. The platforms were not simply barriers or markers. They were components of a sophisticated system designed to control the excavation process. Each level was positioned to test the excavator's capabilities and commitment. The first platform, at 10 feet, was constructed with oak logs cut to precise specifications and sealed with a putty mixture that chemical analysis showed contained unusual additives. The putty was not simple clay or mud, but a compound that included organic materials from multiple sources, some of which were not native to Nova Scotia. At 20 feet, the second platform revealed the presence of coconut fiber woven throughout the putty sealant. The fiber was in remarkable condition, treated with preservatives that had prevented normal decay. Its presence confirmed that the pit's builders had access to materials from tropical regions, requiring either extensive trade connections or direct travel to the Caribbean. The Onslow team's mining expertise allowed them to recognize construction techniques that previous excavators had missed. The platforms were not randomly placed barriers, but carefully engineered components of a larger system. The spacing between them was mathematically precise. The materials were selected for specific properties, and the overall design showed clear evidence of professional planning. At 30 feet, they encountered the third platform, which included charcoal layers mixed with the usual oak logs and putty. The charcoal was not random burn residue, but processed material, carefully prepared and positioned to serve specific functions within the overall construction. Each platform required several days to dismantle safely. The Onslow team documented their findings meticulously, creating detailed drawings of each level's construction and preserving samples of all unusual materials they encountered. Their approach was archaeological rather than simply extractive. The water infiltration problem that had plagued the original boys became more severe as the Onslow excavation progressed deeper. At 40 feet, the pit began filling with water faster than their pumping equipment could remove it. The water was not simple groundwater. It had characteristics that suggested it was being fed from a designed source. Analysis of the infiltrating water revealed salt content that indicated connection to the ocean, but also organic materials that suggested passage through constructed filtration systems. Someone had engineered a method to flood the pit with processed seawater whenever excavation reached certain depths, at 50 feet. The fourth platform included materials that challenged every existing theory about the pit's origins and purpose. Along with the usual oak logs and coconut fiber, the platform contained fragments of parchment, traces of metals that were not native to the region, and evidence of tools that were more sophisticated than anything typically available in colonial North America. The parchment fragments were too deteriorated to preserve readable text, but their presence indicated that documents had been intentionally buried within the platform construction. Pirates burying stolen treasure would have had no reason to include paperwork, but legitimate operations often required extensive documentation. The metal traces included not just iron tools, but fragments of what appeared to be precision instruments, measuring devices, possibly navigational equipment, certainly items that required advanced metallurgy and craftsmanship to produce. The sophistication suggested connections to European centers of learning and manufacturing. At 60 feet, the Onslow team encountered something that forced them to reconsider all their assumptions about the money pit's purpose. The fifth platform was not just another barrier, but the top of what appeared to be a constructed chamber. The logs were arranged to form walls, rather than simply covering the excavation. Below this platform, their probing revealed empty space. Not earth that had been excavated and replaced, but genuine void space that had been intentionally created and preserved. The chamber extended beyond the reach of their probing rods, suggesting significant size and careful construction. The discovery of constructed chambers changed the entire character of the investigation. This was not simply a deep burial, but an underground facility that had been built with specific purposes in mind. The platforms above were not barriers protecting treasure, but access points to a larger underground complex. Water management became critical as they attempted to explore the chamber at 60 feet. The infiltration was now constant and substantial, requiring continuous pumping to maintain working conditions. The water seemed to come from multiple sources, all feeding into the excavation through channels that had been constructed rather than formed naturally. Their most significant discovery came at 70 feet, where they found evidence that the chamber system extended horizontally as well as vertically. Side passages led away from the main shaft in multiple directions, suggesting a network of underground tunnels and rooms that could span much of the island. The Onslow Company's resources were substantial, but the money pit proved to be a more expensive undertaking than any of their projections had anticipated. Each platform required careful dismantling. Each level demanded proper shoring to prevent collapse, and the water management alone consumed enormous amounts of time and equipment. By late 1804, they had reached 80 feet and encountered engineering that was beyond their capacity to overcome safely. The platforms at this depth were constructed with stone as well as wood, fitted together with joints that required specialized tools to dismantle. The flooding had become so severe that work could only proceed for short periods before safety demanded evacuation. Their final major discovery was a stone bearing carved symbols that none of their experts could interpret. The carving was deliberate and precise, clearly meaningful to whoever had created it, but the symbols did not match any known script or code system. As the Onslow Company concluded their excavation and began planning for future attempts with better equipment, I contemplated what 2 years of intensive human activity had revealed. The money pit was not a treasure vault, but an access point to something far more complex and sophisticated than anyone had imagined. winter returned to Oak Island, and with it, the quiet that allowed deeper reflection on the mysteries that lay beneath our feet. 4 decades passed between the Anslow Company's departure and the arrival of the next serious attempt to solve Oak Island's mysteries. During those quiet years, I aged through several cat lifetimes, while the island itself remained largely undisturbed, its secrets resting safely beneath layers of earth and engineered flooding. The Truro Company arrived in 1849 with innovations that represented the progress of human technology, steam-powered drilling equipment, systematic sampling techniques, and the revolutionary idea that perhaps they should discover what lay at the bottom before attempting to dig all the way down. I'd taken up residence in a pine tree that provided excellent sightlines to both the Money Pit area and Smith's Cove, where decades of observation had taught me that the island's water management system was far more extensive than any previous excavators had realized. The Truro team was led by Anthony Vaughan, one of the original 3 boys, now aged into middle years and carrying decades of accumulated theories about what lay beneath the oak tree. His descriptions of the early excavations had gained detail and significance over time, as human memories tend to do when they involve unsolved mysteries. Their approach was methodical in ways that impressed even a naturally skeptical cat. Rather than immediately re-excavating the flooded pit, they began with core drilling to sample the materials at various depths and create accurate maps of what lay below before committing to major excavation work. The drill samples revealed information that complicated every existing theory about the Money Pit's contents and purpose. At 90 feet, the drill encountered wood, but analysis showed it was spruce planking laid in careful layers, sealed with materials that included coconut fiber and traces of organic compounds that were not available in North America during the colonial period. Below the wooden layers, the drill brought up samples of what appeared to be loose metal fragments, not coins or jewelry in their original form, but metal pieces that had been broken down or separated from larger objects. The fragments included iron, traces of silver, and verified samples of gold, actual precious metal in quantities that suggested significant original deposits. Most intriguingly, the drill samples included fragments of parchment that had been preserved by the careful sealing of the underground chambers. While the documents were too deteriorated to read completely, experts who examined them confirmed that the parchment was genuine and the ink traces suggested formal writing rather than casual notation. The drilling revealed that the Money Pit extended far deeper than previous excavations had reached, with constructed barriers continuing well below the 100-foot level. Each barrier showed the same characteristics: precise construction, high-quality materials, and engineering that was sophisticated even by contemporary standards. The Truro Company also investigated the water infiltration problem more systematically than their predecessors. Using dye traces, they confirmed that the flooding was not natural groundwater, but engineered infiltration from Smith's Cove through a network of constructed tunnels. I had observed Smith's Cove for decades, noting that its beach composition was unusual for the Nova Scotia coast. The Truro investigation revealed that the entire cove had been reconstructed as a massive filtration system, with layers of coconut fiber and eelgrass beneath carefully arranged beach stones. The artificial beach was designed to filter seawater through multiple layers before directing it into tunnel systems that led directly to the Money Pit. When excavation reached certain depths, the water pressure would increase dramatically, flooding the shaft and making continued work impossible. This discovery transformed understanding of the Oak Island mystery from simple treasure burial to sophisticated engineering project. Creating the filtration system would have required moving thousands of tons of material, precise surveying to ensure proper water flow, and coordination between multiple construction teams working on different aspects of the overall system. The scale of the undertaking suggested resources and organization far beyond what typical treasure-burying scenarios would require. This was infrastructure construction, not hasty concealment of stolen goods. The Truro drilling also revealed that the money pit was not an isolated construction, but part of a larger network of underground chambers and passages. Side tunnels led away from the main shaft in multiple directions, suggesting that the pit was an access point to extensive underground facilities. Core samples from these side passages contained materials that were even more puzzling than the main shaft contents. Traces of chemicals that were not naturally occurring, fragments of manufactured items that suggested industrial rather than storage purposes, and organic materials that had been preserved under conditions that required careful environmental control. As the Truro Company's investigation progressed, they discovered that previous theories about the money pit's contents were simultaneously too simple and too complex. Too simple because the construction clearly involved purposes beyond mere storage. Too complex because the engineering was so sophisticated that it suggested motives beyond treasure protection. Their most significant finding was negative evidence. Despite extensive drilling and sampling, they found no indication of large treasure chests, bulk precious metals, or the kind of massive valuable deposits that popular theories required. Instead, they found evidence of carefully managed storage systems designed for items that required specific environmental conditions. The drill samples suggested that whatever had been stored in the Oak Island facility had been removed systematically rather than hidden permanently. The metal fragments appeared to be remnants of containers or equipment rather than the contents themselves. The parchment traces were consistent with inventory records or operational documentation rather than treasure maps or burial instructions. By 1850, the Truro Company had exhausted their funding without reaching definitive answers, but they had fundamentally changed the questions that future investigators would need to address. Oak Island was not simply a treasure site, but evidence of a historical operation that involved advanced engineering, international connections, and purposes that remained mysterious. As their equipment was dismantled and their investors departed, I contemplated what 5 years of systematic investigation had revealed. The humans had approached Oak Island expecting to solve a treasure mystery, but what they had actually discovered was evidence of historical activities that were far more complex and significant than simple piracy. The island returned to its natural quiet, but the foundations had been laid for investigations that would continue for generations. Each excavation revealed more questions than answers, more evidence of sophisticated construction than simple burial, more indication that Oak Island's secrets were protected by design rather than accident. Whatever had happened here in the distant past had been planned by people who understood that future investigators would eventually find the money pit, and who had taken considerable care to ensure that finding it would not lead to easy answers. The 1860s brought the kind of technological advancement that made previous excavation attempts look quaint by comparison. The Halifax Company arrived with steam-powered equipment that could have built railways, and indeed, they did build a railway right across my peaceful island to support their industrial-scale assault on the money pit mystery. I had grown accustomed to the cyclical nature of human interest in Oak Island's secrets. Every decade or so, a new group would arrive with better technology, more funding, and absolute confidence that they possessed the missing element that would finally unlock the island's mysteries. The Halifax Company was no exception, but their scale of operation was unprecedented. James Pitbloddow led this expedition with the systematic approach of someone who had studied every previous failure and believed he understood their common weaknesses. Instead of focusing solely on the money pit, his team conducted the first comprehensive survey of the entire island, mapping anomalies and testing theories about the underground tunnel system. Their survey confirmed many observations I had made. During decades of patient exploration, the island showed evidence of extensive modification over considerable time periods. Areas that appeared natural to casual observation revealed signs of careful construction when examined with engineering expertise. The artificial nature of Smith's Cove was even more extensive than the Truro Company had realized. The Halifax investigation revealed that the entire shoreline had been modified to create a sophisticated water management system that extended well beyond the visible beach area. Below the artificial beach, they discovered multiple layers of filtration materials arranged in precise configurations. Coconut fiber and eelgrass were layered with specific types of stone to create different filtration rates at different depths. The system was designed to process large volumes of seawater and direct it through underground channels with controlled flow rates. Most significantly, they discovered that the tunnel system connecting Smith's Cove to the Money Pit included multiple branches and chambers. This was not a simple drainage system, but a network designed to serve complex purposes across multiple locations on the island. The Halifax Company's drilling technology allowed them to penetrate deeper into the Money Pit than any previous expedition. At 100 feet, they encountered the stone barrier that had stopped earlier efforts, but their improved equipment managed to break through into the chamber below. What they found challenged every existing theory about the pit's contents. Instead of treasure chests or document containers, the chamber contained evidence of what appeared to be sophisticated machinery, metal components that showed precise manufacturing, traces of lubricants and preservation materials, fragments of instruments that suggested scientific rather than storage purposes. The machinery fragments were analyzed by the best metallurgists available in Halifax and Montreal. Their conclusions were unanimous. The metalwork was more advanced than anything being produced in North America in the colonial period. The precision of the manufacturing, the quality of the alloys, and the sophistication of the design all suggested European or even more exotic origins. Core samples from the chamber revealed organic materials that had been preserved under carefully controlled conditions, not the random preservation that might occur accidentally, but systematic environmental management that maintained specific temperature and humidity levels over extended periods. The Halifax team also made discoveries that connected Oak Island to historical events that had previously seemed unrelated. Documents found in Halifax archives revealed that the island had been visited by official expeditions during both the French colonial period and early British administration. These official visits were not casual explorations, but systematic surveys, conducted by colonial administrators with specific interests in the island's potential for defensive or strategic purposes. The timing of these visits coincided with major international conflicts, when secure storage or communication facilities would have been valuable. The drilling also revealed that the Money Pit was not the only constructed facility on the island. Similar shaft structures existed at several other locations, though none had been marked as obviously as the original discovery site. The island appeared to have been developed as an integrated facility rather than a single-purpose storage location. Water management remained the primary obstacle to deeper exploration. The Halifax Company brought in engineering consultants who confirmed that the flooding system was far more sophisticated than previous investigators had realized. The tunnels connecting to Smith's Cove included valves and control mechanisms that could regulate water flow based on pressure changes in the Money Pit. This discovery revealed that the flooding was not simply a passive defense mechanism, but an active system that responded to excavation activities. Someone had created underground infrastructure that could detect and respond to intrusion attempts, flooding chambers when unauthorized access was attempted. The Halifax investigation also uncovered evidence of more recent activity on the island than the original construction period. Traces of 18th century tools and materials suggested that the facility had been visited and possibly maintained by people who understood its systems long after its original creation. These maintenance visits appeared to have involved not just inspection, but active work on the underground systems. Components had been replaced, chambers had been modified, and the flooding mechanisms had been tested and adjusted to ensure continued effectiveness. The implications were disturbing from a treasure hunting perspective. If the facility was being maintained, then whatever it was designed to protect was still considered valuable enough to warrant ongoing attention. But it also suggested that someone, somewhere, knew exactly what Oak Island contained, and had the knowledge and resources to maintain its security systems. By 1867, the Halifax Company had spent more money than all previous expeditions combined, and had made discoveries that fundamentally changed understanding of what Oak Island represented. They had proven that the money pit was part of an extensive underground facility, that it had been created by people with advanced engineering knowledge, and that it was designed to resist exactly the kind of excavation attempts that continued to be made. But they had also proven that the facility's security systems were more sophisticated than 19th century technology could overcome. The flooding mechanisms, the structural barriers, and the sheer complexity of the underground network had approaches that were beyond the capabilities of even well-funded mining operations. As the Halifax Company concluded their efforts and began dismantling their equipment, I reflected on what a decade of intensive investigation had revealed. Oak Island contained something that was valuable enough to warrant extraordinary protection, sophisticated enough to require advanced preservation methods, and important enough that people had maintained its security systems across multiple generations. The island settled back into relative quiet, but the questions raised by systematic investigation would draw future seekers with even more advanced technology and deeper pockets. Each excavation revealed more about the complexity of what lay buried, but each revelation made the ultimate answers seem more elusive rather than closer. Whatever Oak Island's builders had hidden, they had done so with the expectation that future technology would eventually make discovery possible, but only for people with sufficient resources, knowledge, and persistence to overcome deliberately constructed obstacles. The early years of the new century brought a most unexpected visitor to Oak Island, a young man named Franklin Roosevelt, whose name would eventually become familiar to humans around the world, for reasons entirely unrelated to treasure hunting. In 1909, however, he was simply another wealthy investor drawn to the island's persistent mysteries. I had observed enough human expeditions by this point to recognize the patterns that distinguished serious investigations from amateur enthusiasm. The Old Gold Salvage Company, which included Roosevelt among its investors, represented a new level of professional approach to the Oak Island challenge. Roosevelt's involvement was not casual speculation, but serious financial commitment based on careful analysis of previous excavation results. He had studied the reports from the Onslow, Truro, and Halifax companies, consulted with mining engineers, and concluded that the money pit represented a solvable problem that required only sufficient resources and modern technology. The young Roosevelt brought to Oak Island the same systematic thinking that would later characterize his political career. He insisted on comprehensive planning before beginning excavation, professional supervision of all operations, and documentation standards that would preserve every discovery for future analysis. I established new observation points that allowed me to monitor not just the excavation work, but the planning discussions and strategy meetings that preceded each phase of the operation. Human decision-making under uncertainty revealed much about their assumptions and motivations. The Old Gold Salvage Company began with a thorough re-examination of all previous discoveries, creating detailed maps of the underground tunnel system, and analyzing the engineering principles that govern the flooding mechanisms. Their investigation confirmed that Oak Island's builders had possessed knowledge of hydraulic engineering that was remarkably advanced for the colonial period. Their drilling operations, using equipment that was far superior to anything previously available, penetrated to depths that had been impossible for earlier expeditions. At 120 feet, they encountered chambers that extended horizontally for considerable distances, confirming that the money pit was indeed an access point to a much larger underground complex. Roosevelt himself spent considerable time on the island, examining the drill samples and consulting with experts about their implications. His background in maritime law and international finance gave him perspectives that previous investigators had lacked. He approached the mystery not as a treasure hunt, but as an archaeological investigation with potential historical significance. The drill samples from the deepest levels contained materials that were increasingly puzzling. Along with the now familiar coconut fiber and exotic wood fragments, they found traces of chemicals that should not have existed in colonial North America, compounds that suggested industrial processes, preservation techniques, or scientific activities that were anachronistic for the supposed period of construction. Most significantly, the deep drilling revealed that the chamber system was not simply storage space, but appeared to have been designed for ongoing human occupation. Ventilation shafts, drainage systems, and what appeared to be living quarters suggested that Oak Island had once housed a substantial underground facility with permanent residents. Roosevelt's team made their most important discovery in the money pit itself, but in the surrounding tunnel network. Using new detection methods, they located chambers that contained evidence of extended human habitation, cooking areas, sleeping quarters, workspaces equipped with tools and equipment that indicated skilled craftsmanship and scientific activities. The underground facility appeared to have been self-sufficient, with systems for fresh water management, waste disposal, and air circulation that would have allowed people to live and work below ground for extended periods. This was not a simple hiding place, but a functioning underground community. Analysis of organic materials found in the living quarters suggested that the facility had been occupied during multiple historical periods. Carbon dating techniques, primitive but available in 1909, indicated human activity spanning from the late 17th century through the mid-18th century, with possible extensions into the early 19th century. The implications were staggering. Oak Island had not been the site of a single treasure burial, but the location of an ongoing operation that had functioned for decades, or possibly centuries. The money pit was not a vault, but an access shaft to underground facilities that had housed people engaged in activities that required secrecy and security. Roosevelt's investigation also revealed connections between Oak Island and historical events that had been documented in colonial records. Ship manifests from the period showed unusual cargo movements to the Nova Scotia coast, including materials that matched the exotic components found in the money pit construction. Government correspondence from both French and British colonial administrations included references to special facilities and secure operations in the Oak Island vicinity. Though the specific nature of these activities was described in coded language that was difficult to interpret decades later, the Roosevelt expedition's most disturbing discovery was evidence that the underground facility had been deliberately destroyed rather than simply abandoned. Collapsed passages, filled chambers, and systematic removal of equipment suggested that whoever had operated the facility had taken careful steps to eliminate evidence of their activities. This destruction appeared to have occurred in multiple phases, possibly corresponding to changing political conditions or security threats. Some areas showed signs of hasty evacuation, while others indicated methodical decommissioning that preserved certain elements while eliminating others. The flooding system that had frustrated so many treasure hunters was revealed to be part of this destruction protocol. The tunnels to Smith's Cove included mechanisms that could flood the entire underground complex rapidly and completely, ensuring that sensitive materials would be destroyed if the facility was compromised. Roosevelt's financial backing allowed the Old Gold Salvage Company to continue their investigation longer than most previous expeditions, but even their substantial resources were eventually exhausted by the complexity of what they were attempting to excavate. The underground facility was simply too extensive and too well protected to be explored completely with available technology. Their final report, filed with investors in 1910, concluded that Oak Island contained evidence of historical activities that were far more significant than treasure burial. The scale of construction, the sophistication of the engineering, and the evidence of long-term occupation suggested that the island had played a role in colonial history that was not reflected in official records. As Roosevelt departed Oak Island for what would prove to be his final visit, I reflected on what his expedition had revealed about the fundamental nature of the mystery. Previous investigators had been asking the wrong questions, seeking treasure when they should have been seeking history, looking for pirates when they should have been looking for evidence of official operations. The money pit was not hiding wealth, but hiding knowledge of activities that someone had considered important enough to protect with engineering that remained impressive even by early 20th century standards. The middle of the 20th century brought Oak Island its most dedicated and ultimately most tragic investigators, the Restall family, who moved to the island permanently and dedicated their lives to solving its mysteries. I had witnessed many human obsessions over the decades, but none as complete or as costly as Robert Restall's commitment to the money pit. Robert Restall was a former circus performer turned contractor who approached Oak Island with a combination of physical courage and methodical planning that distinguished him from previous treasure hunters. He was not seeking quick riches, but pursuing what he saw as the greatest puzzle of his lifetime. The Restall family, Robert, his wife Mildred, and their children, established permanent residence on Oak Island in 1959, building living quarters and workshop facilities that indicated their intention to pursue the investigation for as long as necessary. This was not a seasonal excavation, but a life commitment. I observed their daily routines with the interest that comes from sharing living space with new neighbors. The family approached the money pit mystery as a research project rather than a treasure hunt, documenting every discovery and maintaining careful records of all their activities. Robert's excavation methods were more sophisticated than anything previously attempted on the island. He used modern pumping equipment to manage the water infiltration, employed professional surveying techniques to map the underground tunnel system, and applied systematic archaeology methods to preserve and analyze every artifact. Their discoveries during the early 1960s revealed aspects of Oak Island's construction that previous investigators had missed or misunderstood. The tunnel system was far more extensive than anyone had realized, extending not just to Smith's Cove, but to multiple points around the island's shoreline. The Restall investigation also revealed that the money pit had been modified multiple times. Throughout its history, different construction techniques at various levels suggested that the facility had been updated and maintained across different historical periods, possibly by different groups with evolving purposes. Most significantly, Robert discovered evidence that the underground facility had been used for activities that required precise environmental control. Chambers contained traces of chemicals and equipment that indicated scientific or industrial processes rather than simple storage. The family's permanent residence on the island allowed them to observe phenomena that previous short-term expeditions had missed: seasonal changes in water flow, variations in ground temperature that suggested underground activity, and even acoustic anomalies that indicated hollow spaces beneath areas that appeared solid. Robert's son Bobby became his primary assistant, learning excavation techniques and developing his own theories about the island's mysteries. The younger Restall brought enthusiasm and physical capability that complemented his father's methodical approach and accumulated expertise. Their work during the early 1960s focused on understanding the flooding system rather than simply fighting it. Robert theorized that the water infiltration was not just a defense mechanism, but an essential component of whatever the underground facility had been designed to accomplish. By 1965, the Restall investigation had revealed that Oak Island's builders had created not just a hiding place, but a functioning facility that required ongoing water management for operational purposes. The flooding that frustrated excavators might have been necessary for the original activities conducted underground, This theory was supported by discoveries of what appeared to be processing equipment rather than storage containers. Metal fragments showed signs of industrial wear. Chemical traces suggested ongoing operations rather than one-time burial, and the chamber configurations were designed for workflow rather than security. The Restall family had also made connections between Oak Island and historical events that previous investigators had overlooked. Colonial records contained references to official activities in the area that matched the timing and scale suggested by the archaeological evidence. August 17, 1965, began as a routine day of investigation. Robert and Bobby were working on a new shaft designed to bypass the flooding mechanisms by approaching the underground chambers from a different angle. The work required careful attention to safety protocols because of the dangerous gases that could accumulate in deep excavations. I was observing from my usual position when the accident occurred. Robert descended into the shaft to check their progress and was overcome by hydrogen sulfide gas that had accumulated overnight. Bobby attempted a rescue and was also overcome. Two workers who tried to help them suffered the same fate. The tragedy claimed 4 lives in a matter of minutes and ended the Restall family's investigation permanently. Mildred Restall and her surviving children left Oak Island immediately, abandoning years of careful work and accumulated discoveries. The accident revealed something that all previous investigations had overlooked. The underground facility was not simply protected by flooding, but by naturally occurring and artificially enhanced gas accumulation. The same geological conditions that allowed for complex tunnel systems also created environments where dangerous gases could collect without warning. This discovery added another layer to understanding Oak Island's defensive systems. The builders had not just engineered water management and structural barriers, but had chosen a location where natural conditions would enhance the security of their facility through environmental hazards. The Restall tragedy also demonstrated that Oak Island's mysteries were protected not just by ancient engineering, but by ongoing natural processes that made investigation inherently dangerous. The island's geology, modified by human construction, had created conditions that could kill modern investigators just as effectively as they might have deterred historical intruders. Following the accident, Oak Island was abandoned by serious investigators for several years. The combination of proven danger, enormous costs, and lack of concrete results had finally exceeded even the most optimistic treasure hunters' appetite for risk. During this quiet period, I had opportunity to explore areas that had been disturbed by the Restall excavations. Their work had revealed that the underground facility was even more extensive than their public reports had indicated. Chambers and passages extended throughout much of the island, creating a subterranean network that was essentially a buried town. The Restall family's dedication had advanced understanding of Oak Island's mysteries further than any previous investigation. But their tragic end also demonstrated that some secrets might be protected by dangers that no amount of modern technology could safely overcome. Their legacy was a comprehensive archive of discoveries and a sobering reminder that the island's builders had anticipated and prepared for investigation attempts across multiple centuries. Whatever Oak Island contained, it remained as secure in 1965 as it had been in 1795. The island returned to its patient waiting, but now carried the weight of human tragedy along with its historical mysteries. Some secrets I had learned extract prices that exceed any possible treasure. The late 1950s brought to Oak Island the most dedicated investigators in its long history of human visitation. Robert Restall and his family moved to the island permanently, establishing residence and committing their lives to solving mysteries that had frustrated seekers for over a century and a half. I had observed many human approaches to Oak Island's challenges, but none as comprehensive as the Restall family's total commitment. They were not weekend treasure hunters or seasonal expeditions, but permanent residents who treated the island's mysteries as their life's work. Robert Restall approached the money pit with the systematic methodology of someone who had studied every previous failure and identified the common elements that had led to their lack of success. His background in construction and engineering gave him practical skills that complemented his theoretical understanding of the puzzle. The family established workshops, living quarters, and research facilities that indicated their intention to pursue the investigation indefinitely. This was not a treasure hunt with expected quick resolution, but a long-term research project that would require years or possibly decades to complete. Mildred Restall managed the documentation and correspondence that connected their work to historical research being conducted in archives and universities around the world. The Oak Island mystery had begun attracting academic attention, and the Restall investigation was designed to meet scholarly standards for archaeological research. Their children, Bobby and Ricky, grew up on Oak Island, learning excavation techniques and developing their own theories about the island's secrets. The younger generation brought fresh perspectives and physical capabilities that complemented their parents' accumulated expertise and methodical approach. The Restall excavation methods were more sophisticated than anything previously attempted. On the island, they used modern pumping systems to manage water infiltration, employed professional surveying to map tunnel systems accurately, and applied systematic documentation methods to preserve every discovery. Their work during the early 1960s revealed that previous expeditions had barely scratched the surface of Oak Island's complexity. The underground facility was far more extensive than anyone had realized, with chambers and passages that extended throughout much of the island's subsurface. Robert's investigation focused on understanding the engineering principles that govern the island's construction, rather than simply fighting against the defensive systems that protected its secrets. He approached the flooding mechanisms as sophisticated hydraulic engineering that could be understood and managed with proper analysis. The family's permanent residence allowed them to observe seasonal patterns and environmental changes that had been missed by shorter expeditions. They discovered that the island's mysterious characteristics varied with weather conditions, tidal cycles, and atmospheric pressure in ways that suggested ongoing interaction between natural and artificial systems. Most significantly, the Restall investigation revealed that the money pit was not simply an access shaft, but a component in a larger system that had been designed for ongoing operation rather than one-time storage. The engineering was too sophisticated and too well maintained for simple burial purposes. Robert's analysis of previous discoveries using modern techniques revealed that earlier expeditions had misunderstood the nature of many artifacts they had found. Items that had been interpreted as treasure or storage containers were actually components of equipment that had been disassembled before being placed in the pit. The family's research also established connections between Oak Island and documented historical events that previous investigators had overlooked. Maritime records, colonial correspondence, and private archives contained references that suggested the island had played roles in activities that were considered too sensitive for official documentation. Bobby Restall developed particular expertise in the island's water management systems, mapping the tunnel network and understanding how the flooding mechanisms had been designed to protect the underground facility while serving operational purposes for its original occupants. The younger Restall's work revealed that the flooding was not simply a defense against intruders, but had been essential for activities that required controlled environmental conditions. The underground chambers had been designed to maintain specific temperature and humidity levels through careful water circulation. By 1964, the Restall family had made discoveries that fundamentally changed understanding of what Oak Island represented. This was not a historical treasure site, but evidence of an ongoing operation that had functioned across multiple generations, using knowledge and technology that was officially unknown during the colonial period. Their investigation also revealed that the facility had been decommissioned systematically rather than abandoned hastily. Equipment had been removed methodically, Chambers had been sealed deliberately, and security systems had been activated to preserve the site for possible future use. The systematic decommissioning suggested that Oak Island's operators had completed their activities according to plan, other than being forced to flee by external threats. Whatever they had been doing underground, they had finished successfully and taken careful steps to protect their methods and discoveries. August 17, 1965, began as another routine day of careful excavation and systematic documentation. Robert and Bobby were working on accessing chambers that their surveys had indicated contained significant artifacts or equipment. The tragedy that befell the Restall family that day was swift and complete. Robert was overcome by hydrogen sulfide gas while working in a deep shaft. Bobby attempted rescue and was also overcome. Two other workers who tried to help them suffered the same fate. 4 lives were lost in a matter of minutes, ending the most dedicated and systematic investigation that Oak Island had ever received. The accident demonstrated that the island's secrets were protected not just by ancient engineering, but by ongoing natural hazards that made investigation inherently dangerous. Mildred Restall and her surviving children departed Oak Island immediately, leaving behind years of careful work and discoveries that had advanced understanding of the mystery further than any previous expedition. The Restall tragedy marked the end of an era in Oak Island investigation. No future expedition would approach the island with the same total commitment and permanent residence that had characterized the family's approach. Their legacy was a comprehensive archive of discoveries and documentation that would inform all future investigations. They had proven that Oak Island's mysteries were historically significant and worthy of serious academic attention. But they had also demonstrated the very real dangers that protected those mysteries. The island returned to quiet, but the questions raised by the Restall investigation would continue to attract researchers and treasure hunters for generations. Each expedition built upon their discoveries, while grappling with the same fundamental challenges that had ultimately proven fatal. As I settled back into the peaceful routines of an island without human excavation, I reflected on what 6 years of intensive investigation had revealed about the nature of Oak Island's secrets and the price of pursuing them. Some mysteries, I had learned, were protected not just by human engineering, but by natural forces that made certain knowledge dangerous to seek. The 1970s brought to Oak Island technology that transformed investigation from physical excavation to electronic exploration. Dan Blankenship and David Tobias formed a Triton alliance with equipment that could analyze underground structures without requiring the dangerous digging that had claimed the Restall family's lives. Blankenship established permanent residence on the island, following the Restall family's approach, but with enhanced safety protocols and better understanding of the environmental hazards that made investigation dangerous. His partner Tobias provided financial backing and business management that allowed for long-term systematic research. The Triton Alliance represented a new phase in Oak Island investigation, professional archaeological research supported by modern technology and adequate funding. Their approach was methodical, safety-conscious, and designed to answer historical questions rather than simply extract treasure. Their first major innovation was the use of underwater cameras that could explore flooded chambers without requiring human entry into dangerous confined spaces. These cameras revealed that the underground facility was far more extensive and sophisticated than any previous investigation had discovered. The camera footage showed constructed chambers with finished walls, engineered drainage systems, and what appeared to be equipment mounting points that suggested the spaces had once housed sophisticated machinery or scientific apparatus. Most remarkably, the underwater exploration revealed that many chambers had been deliberately flooded as part of the decommissioning process rather than accidentally flooded by infiltration from the ocean. The water levels and flow patterns indicated controlled flooding designed to preserve certain areas while making others inaccessible. Triton's drilling technology allowed them to extract core samples from depths exceeding 200 feet, revealing that the constructed facility extended far deeper than anyone had imagined. The engineering at these depths was even more sophisticated than the upper levels, suggesting that the most important activities had been conducted in the deepest and most secure areas. The deep core samples contained materials that were increasingly anachronistic for their supposed historical period. Traces of synthetic compounds, evidence of electrical equipment, and fragments of devices that incorporated principles not officially discovered until the late 19th century. Analysis of these materials by university laboratories and industrial research facilities confirmed that Oak Island's builders had possessed technological capabilities that were centuries ahead of their time, or had been active much more recently than the surface evidence suggested. The Triton investigation also made important discoveries about Oak Island's connections to documented historical events. Research in European archives revealed references to North American facilities that matched Oak Island's characteristics and timeline. These archival discoveries suggested that Oak Island had been part of an international network of similar facilities, all operated by organizations that possessed advanced knowledge and substantial resources. The island was not an isolated mystery, but part of a larger historical pattern. Computer analysis of the tunnel system's layout revealed mathematical precision that indicated the use of sophisticated surveying and engineering methods. The placement of chambers, passages, and water management systems followed geometric patterns that suggested advanced mathematical knowledge that was not widely available during the colonial period. The Triton Alliance's most significant discovery was evidence that Oak Island had been designed not as a single facility, but as a testing ground for technologies and techniques that were later implemented at other locations. The island appeared to have served as a research and development center, where new methods were perfected before being deployed elsewhere. This revelation transformed understanding of Oak Island from mysterious treasure site to historical technology center. The sophisticated engineering, the evidence of ongoing research activities, and the systematic preservation methods all supported the theory that the island had been used for developing new capabilities rather than simply storing existing materials. Blankenship's long-term residence on the island allowed him to observe phenomena that shorter expeditions had missed. Seasonal variations in electromagnetic readings, changes in ground temperature that suggested ongoing underground activity, and acoustic anomalies that indicated hidden spaces beneath areas that appeared solid. The computer analysis of core samples revealed that materials found at different depths had been placed there according to specific preservation protocols. Each level showed evidence of careful environmental control designed to maintain optimal conditions for different types of stored materials. The deep chambers accessed through Triton's drilling contained traces of activities that were clearly scientific in nature. Chemical residues suggested laboratory work, metal fragments indicated precision manufacturing, and organic materials showed evidence of systematic preservation techniques. Most intriguingly, the Triton investigation revealed that the Oak Island facility had been designed with expansion capabilities. The tunnel system included passages that led to areas where additional chambers could have been constructed as needed, suggesting that the original builders had planned for growth and development of their operations. The water management system proved to be even more sophisticated than previous investigations had realized. The flooding mechanisms included not just passive infiltration from Smith's Cove, but active pumping systems that could control water levels in specific chambers, while maintaining different environmental conditions in others. Analysis of the water itself revealed that it had been treated with chemical additives designed to prevent corrosion and biological decay. The flooding was not simply a defense mechanism, but an active preservation system that maintained optimal conditions for long-term storage. The Triton Alliance's decades of investigation established that Oak Island represented one of the most sophisticated engineering projects ever undertaken in colonial North America. the scale of construction, the precision of the work, and the evidence of long-term operation all indicated involvement by organizations with substantial resources and advanced technical knowledge. Their research also revealed connections between Oak Island and similar mysterious sites along the North American coast, suggesting that the island was part of a network of facilities operated by the same groups for related purposes. By the 1990s, the Triton Alliance had transformed Oak Island investigation from treasure hunting to legitimate archaeological research. Their systematic approach and technological capabilities had revealed more about the site's true significance than all previous expeditions combined. As Blankenship aged, and the Alliance gradually reduced their activities, the foundation had been laid for future investigations that would build upon their discoveries. While employing even more advanced analytical techniques, the island settled into another period of relative quiet. But the questions raised by 2 decades of systematic research would continue to attract investigators equipped with ever more sophisticated technology. Whatever Oak Island's original builders had created, the Triton investigation had proven that it was significant enough to warrant the attention of serious historical researchers and important enough to continue drawing seekers willing to invest substantial resources in uncovering its secrets. The early years of the new millennium brought Oak Island into the age of global media attention, when Rick and Motti Lagina acquired rights to investigate the island, with television cameras documenting every discovery and theory for audiences. Around the world, I had observed the gradual evolution of human investigation methods from simple hand tools to sophisticated electronic equipment. But the Lagina era represented something entirely new, the transformation of Oak Island from local mystery to international phenomenon. The brothers approached the island with different but complementary perspectives. Rick brought the enthusiasm of someone who had been fascinated by Oak Island since childhood, while Motti provided engineering expertise and business acumen that could sustain long-term systematic investigation. Their television documentation meant that every discovery, no matter how small, was preserved and analyzed by experts who could contribute specialized knowledge to understanding its significance. The global attention also attracted researchers and theorists who brought new perspectives to old questions. The Lagina investigation began with comprehensive review of all previous discoveries, using modern analytical techniques to re-examine artifacts and materials that earlier expeditions had collected but not fully understood with available technology. Carbon dating, isotopic analysis, and molecular spectroscopy revealed information about Oak Island's construction materials that fundamentally changed understanding of when and how the facility had been built. The coconut fiber that had puzzled investigators for over a century was revealed through genetic analysis to have originated from multiple tropical regions, suggesting extensive trade networks or direct travel to various Caribbean and South American locations. The metal fragments found throughout the site showed isotopic signatures that indicated mining sources in Europe, Africa, and South America, confirming that Oak Island's builders had access to materials from around the world. Most significantly, the wooden platforms that had been found at regular intervals throughout the money pit were revealed through dendrochronology to have been cut from trees that grew in different geographic regions and different time periods. This discovery suggested that the Oak Island facility had been constructed and modified repeatedly over decades, or possibly centuries, with materials being imported from various locations as the project evolved and expanded. The Lagina team's systematic approach included not just excavation, but comprehensive research into historical documents that might provide context for their archaeological discoveries. Their research revealed connections between Oak Island and documented historical events that previous investigators had overlooked or dismissed. Maritime records, colonial correspondence, and private archives contained references that suggested the island had played roles in activities that were considered too sensitive for official documentation. The television format also allowed for real-time consultation with experts who could provide immediate analysis of discoveries as they were made. This collaborative approach brought knowledge from multiple disciplines to bear on each new piece of evidence. Geological analysis revealed that Oak Island's bedrock had been extensively modified through quarrying and tunneling operations that would have required substantial manpower and sophisticated engineering knowledge. The scale of the underground construction was far greater than any previous investigation had realized. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic analysis indicated that tunnels and chambers extended throughout most of the island's subsurface. Chemical analysis of soil samples revealed traces of industrial activities that were anachronistic for the supposed period of construction. Compounds associated with advanced metallurgy, precision manufacturing, and scientific research were found throughout the site. The Lagina investigation also employed underwater archaeology techniques to explore the flooded chambers that had frustrated previous expeditions. Remote-operated vehicles equipped with cameras and sampling equipment could access areas that were too dangerous for human exploration. These underwater investigations revealed that many chambers had been deliberately sealed and flooded rather than accidentally inundated. The systematic flooding appeared to have been part of a planned decommissioning process designed to preserve certain materials while making others inaccessible. The television documentation also captured phenomena that previous investigators had observed but been unable to record: seasonal variations in electromagnetic readings, unexplained acoustic anomalies, and temperature variations that suggested ongoing underground activity. Most intriguingly, the Lagina team discovered that Oak Island's mysterious characteristics were not entirely historical. Modern monitoring equipment detected activities that suggested the underground facility was still responding to environmental changes and possibly still functioning in some capacity. The global attention generated by television coverage also attracted hoax attempts and false claims that the Lagina team had to investigate and debunk. This process of verification actually strengthened the credibility of genuine discoveries by demonstrating rigorous analytical standards. After more than a decade of investigation, the Lagina Brothers had accumulated more documented evidence about Oak Island's true nature than all previous expeditions combined. But they had also demonstrated that the mystery was far more complex than anyone had imagined. Their systematic approach had proven that Oak Island represented a genuine historical anomaly that warranted serious academic attention. The sophistication of the construction, the evidence of long-term operation, and the systematic preservation methods all indicated activities that were historically significant. The television era had transformed Oak Island from treasure-hunting destination to legitimate archaeological site, attracting university researchers and government agencies interested in what the island might reveal about colonial history and technological development. As the investigation continued with ever more sophisticated equipment and analytical techniques, it became clear that Oak Island's secrets were protected not just by ancient engineering, but by the sheer complexity of the historical activities that had been conducted there. The island's builders had created something that was designed to be discovered eventually, but only by people with sufficient resources, knowledge, and persistence to understand what they found. Each season of investigation of new aspects of the mystery, while confirming that previous generations of seekers had been asking the right questions, but lacked the technology to find complete answers. The global attention had also established that Oak Island's significance extended beyond local history to questions about technological development, international connections, and historical activities that had been deliberately concealed from official records. As the 21st century progressed, Oak Island attracted attention from academic institutions and research organizations that approached the mystery with scientific methodology rather than treasure hunting enthusiasm. Universities began sending graduate students to conduct thesis research on the island's anomalies. The scientific approach brought new analytical techniques that could examine Oak Island's mysteries without requiring dangerous excavation. Ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic surveys, and gravitational analysis could map underground structures while preserving the site for future research. Archaeologists from several universities established that Oak Island showed clear evidence of being a planned construction project rather than natural formation defined by treasure burial. The systematic layout, the precision of the engineering, and the sophistication of the preservation methods all indicated professional planning and execution. Historical researchers discovered connections between Oak Island and documented colonial activities that had been classified or excluded from official records. Government archives in both Britain and France contained references to North American facilities that matched Oak Island's characteristics and timeline. These archival discoveries revealed that Oak Island had been known to colonial administrators and had been visited by official expeditions that were described in coded language, suggesting sensitive or classified activities. The most significant scientific development was isotopic analysis that could determine the geographic origins of materials found throughout the site. This analysis revealed that Oak Island's builders had access to resources from multiple continents, indicating either extensive trade networks or direct international connections. Metallurgical analysis of artifacts found in the deep chambers revealed manufacturing techniques that were more advanced than anything officially available in colonial North America. The precision of the metalwork, the quality of the alloys, and the sophistication of the design all suggested European or possibly more exotic origins. Chemical analysis of preserved organic materials revealed that Oak Island's builders had possessed knowledge of advanced preservation techniques that were not widely available until the 19th century. The systematic environmental control indicated understanding of chemistry and biology that was centuries ahead of its time. Computer modeling of the tunnel system revealed mathematical principles that were based on geometric relationships, not widely understood until the development of modern engineering. The placement of chambers and passages followed patterns that suggested advanced mathematical knowledge. Scientific analysis also revealed that Oak Island's water management system was far more sophisticated than simple flood control. The hydraulic engineering included pressure regulation, flow control, and filtration systems that would have challenged even contemporary engineers. Most significantly, scientific investigation revealed that Oak Island had been designed not as a storage facility, but as a working laboratory or research center. The chamber configurations, the equipment mounting points, and the environmental control systems all suggested ongoing activities rather than simple burial. The scientific evidence supported theories that Oak Island had been operated by people with access to knowledge and technology that was not available through normal colonial channels. Either they had connections to advanced European centers of learning, or they possessed knowledge that was not officially recognized until much later periods. Geological analysis revealed that Oak Island's builders had possessed detailed knowledge of the local geology before beginning construction. The placement of tunnels and chambers took advantage of natural rock formations in ways that suggested extensive preliminary surveying and analysis. The systematic approach of scientific investigation also revealed that many previous theories about Oak Island had been based on incomplete evidence or misunderstanding of the archaeological record. The island's mysteries were more complex and historically significant than treasure hunting scenarios had suggested. Scientific analysis of the site also revealed evidence of multiple construction phases spanning several decades or possibly centuries. Different areas showed distinct construction techniques and materials that suggested evolution of methods and purposes over extended time periods. Most intriguingly, scientific monitoring detected ongoing changes in the underground facility that suggested it was still responding to environmental conditions and possibly still functioning in some capacity. The island's systems appeared to be self-maintaining through natural processes. The scientific approach also attracted international attention from researchers studying similar mysterious sites around the world. Oak Island was revealed to be part of a pattern of anomalous construction projects that had been undertaken during the colonial period at various locations. Academic conferences began featuring Oak Island research as a legitimate field of historical and archaeological study. The island's mysteries were recognized as providing unique insights into technological capabilities and historical activities that were not reflected in official records. The scientific investigation also revealed that Oak Island's builders had anticipated future technological development and had designed their facility to be accessible only when advanced analytical techniques became available. The systematic preservation and the complexity of the security systems suggested planning for eventual discovery by people with appropriate knowledge and equipment. Research into historical documents revealed that Oak Island's construction had coincided with a period of significant technological advancement in Europe, suggesting possible connections to centers of learning and innovation that were developing new capabilities for various purposes. The scientific evidence also supported theories that Oak Island had been part of an international network of similar facilities, all operated by organizations that possessed advanced knowledge and substantial resources for pursuing activities that required secrecy and security. Most significantly, scientific analysis revealed that whatever had been stored or conducted on Oak Island had been removed systematically rather than hidden permanently. The facility had been decommissioned according to plan, rather than abandoned hastily. This systematic decommissioning suggested that Oak Island's operators had completed their activities successfully and had taken careful steps to preserve their methods and discoveries for future access by people with appropriate knowledge and authority. The scientific approach had transformed understanding of Oak Island from treasure mystery to historical research opportunity. The island provided unique evidence of technological capabilities and organizational activities that had been deliberately excluded from official historical records. Academic research had established that Oak Island represented one of the most significant archaeological sites in North America for understanding colonial technological development and the activities of organizations that operated outside official government channels. The scientific investigation continued to reveal new aspects of the mystery, while confirming that Oak Island's significance lay not in potential treasure, but in what it could teach about historical activities that had shaped colonial development in ways that were not reflected in conventional historical accounts. As research continued with ever more sophisticated analytical techniques, it became clear that Oak Island would continue to provide insights into historical mysteries for generations of future investigators. After more than 2 centuries of human investigation, Oak Island remains as mysterious as it was when 3 boys first noticed a circular depression beneath an ancient oak tree. I have observed the evolution of human curiosity from simple treasure hunting to sophisticated archaeological research, yet the island's fundamental secrets remain secure. The accumulated evidence from generations of investigation has revealed that Oak Island was the site of activities that were far more complex and historically significant than simple treasure burial. The sophisticated engineering, the evidence of long-term operation, and the systematic preservation methods all indicate that the island played important roles in colonial development. What began as a search for pirate gold has evolved into recognition that Oak Island provides unique insights into technological capabilities and organizational activities that were deliberately excluded from official historical records. The island represents a window into aspects of colonial history that were considered too sensitive for public documentation. The pattern of discoveries across multiple expeditions has revealed that Oak Island's builders possessed knowledge and resources that were centuries ahead of their supposed time period. Either they had access to advanced European technology and techniques, or their activities continued much later than surface evidence suggests. Most significantly, The evidence indicates that Oak Island was designed not to hide treasure permanently, but to preserve knowledge and techniques for a future access by people with appropriate capabilities and authority. The island's systems were engineered to resist casual investigation while allowing eventual discovery by serious researchers. The systematic decommissioning that ended Oak Island's active period suggests that its operators completed their activities successfully rather than being forced to abandon their work. Whatever they accomplished there, they finished according to plan and took careful steps to preserve their methods for a future use. Modern investigation has also revealed that Oak Island was part of a larger network of similar facilities that operated. During the colonial period, the island was not an isolated mystery, but evidence of organized activities that spanned multiple locations and probably multiple generations. The global attention that Oak Island has attracted in recent decades has transformed it from local curiosity to internationally recognized archaeological site. University researchers, government agencies, and scientific organizations now study the island as a legitimate source of historical information. The television documentation of modern investigations has also served an important educational purpose, demonstrating the difference between systematic archaeological research and amateur treasure hunting. The island has become a model for how mysterious sites should be investigated using scientific methodology. Most importantly, Oak Island has demonstrated that some historical activities were conducted with such sophistication and secrecy that they remain mysterious even when investigated with the most advanced modern technology. The island's builders created something that was designed to challenge future generations of researchers. The enduring nature of Oak Island's mystery also serves as a reminder that official historical records do not capture all the activities that shaped colonial development. Important technological advancements and organizational operations were deliberately excluded from public documentation for reasons that may never be fully understood. As investigation continues with ever more sophisticated equipment and analytical techniques, Oak Island continues to reveal new aspects of its mystery while maintaining its fundamental secrets. Each generation of researchers adds to the accumulated knowledge while discovering that the puzzle is more complex than previous generations realized. The island's ability to frustrate investigation attempts while providing just enough evidence to encourage continued research suggests that its builders understood human psychology as well as engineering. They created a puzzle that would attract exactly the kind of persistent, well-resourced investigation that could eventually understand their work. From my perspective as a long-term observer, Oak Island represents one of humanity's most persistent quests for knowledge. The island has attracted seekers for over 2 centuries, each bringing their era's best technology and methodology to bear on its mysteries. The fact that the mystery endures, despite such intensive investigation, suggests that Oak Island's secrets are protected not just by ancient engineering but by the inherent complexity of the historical activities that were conducted there. Some knowledge requires not just technology, but wisdom to understand properly. The island has also demonstrated the evolution of human investigative capabilities across multiple generations. Each era's approach reflected its technological limitations and assumptions, but also contributed essential pieces to understanding the overall puzzle. Modern investigation has revealed that Oak Island's significance extends far beyond potential treasure to questions about technological development, international cooperation, and historical activities that challenged conventional understanding of colonial capabilities. As I settle into my evening rest among the familiar trees and rocks of Oak Island, I reflect on the privilege of having witnessed over 2 centuries of human curiosity and determination. The island has attracted some of humanity's most persistent and resourceful individuals, each contributing to an ever-growing understanding of historical mysteries. Whatever Oak Island's builders accomplished here, they created something that continues to inspire human curiosity and challenge human capabilities more than 2 centuries after their work was completed. The island stands as a testament to the enduring power of mystery and the human drive to understand the unknown. The questions that drew the first three boys to dig beneath the oak tree continue to draw researchers from around the world. Each generation brings new tools and perspectives, but also discovers that the island's mysteries are deeper and more complex than anyone imagined. As night falls over Oak Island, and the sounds of investigation equipment give way to the eternal rhythm of waves against rocky shores, the island keeps its secrets while continuing to challenge anyone bold enough to seek answers to its enduring questions. Some mysteries, I have learned, are meant not to be solved quickly, but to inspire generations of seekers to push the boundaries of knowledge and capability. Oak Island may be one of history's greatest teachers, using mystery to educate humanity about persistence, methodology, and the complexity of historical truth. The island waits patiently for the next generation of investigators, ready to share just enough of its secrets to encourage continued seeking while maintaining the fundamental mystery that has defined its character for over 2 centuries. As I conclude this chronicle of human persistence and Oak Island's enduring mysteries, I am reminded that some stories are more valuable for the questions they raise than the answers they provide. For over 2 centuries, this small island has challenged human assumptions about history, technology, and the limits of colonial capabilities. The three boys who first discovered the circular depression beneath the oak tree began a quest that has engaged some of humanity's most determined and resourceful individuals. Each generation has brought new tools and methods, yet the island's fundamental secrets remain protected by engineering that was designed to challenge future technology. What began as a simple treasure hunt has evolved into recognition that Oak Island represents something far more significant, evidence of historical activities that were deliberately excluded from official records, but important enough to warrant extraordinary preservation efforts. The accumulated evidence suggests that Oak Island's builders were not hiding treasure, but preserving knowledge of techniques, technologies, and organizational methods that were considered too valuable or too dangerous for public documentation. From my perspective as a patient observer, the real treasure of Oak Island has been watching human curiosity evolve from simple greed to sophisticated scientific investigation. The island has educated generations of seekers about the importance of systematic methodology, safety protocols, and collaborative research. Perhaps most importantly, Oak Island has demonstrated that historical truth is often more complex and interesting than official records suggest. The island stands as a reminder that important activities have always been conducted away from public attention, using capabilities that were not officially recognized until much later periods. As I settle into sleep among the ancient trees of Oak Island, I am content knowing that the mystery will continue to challenge future generations of seekers. The island's builders created something that was designed to inspire exactly this kind of persistent, thoughtful investigation. Whatever Oak Island's ultimate secrets may be, the island has already provided its greatest gift, proof that human curiosity and determination can persist across centuries, bringing each generation closer to understanding mysteries that seemed impossible to solve. The island keeps its secrets, but it has shared something equally valuable, the knowledge that some questions are worth pursuing even when answers remain elusive. In teaching this lesson, Oak Island has revealed the greatest treasure of all, the enduring power of human curiosity to transform mystery into wisdom. Sweet dreams, seekers of mysteries. The island waits patiently for your return.